freeze!
Hello and welcome to another edition of Truth and Rhythm, brought to you by FunkinStuff.net. This is the interview show that gets deep in the pocket with contemporary music's foremost masters of the groove. I'm your host, Scott Dr. Jigs Goldfine, musicologist and author of Everything's on the One, the First Guide to Funk. If you don't have your copy, get on over to Amazon and pick one up. You'll be so glad you did. Whether you're watching the video version of this at FunkinStuff.net or on YouTube, or listening to the audio-only podcast version from providers like iTunes and Spotify, as always, I thank you so much for your continued interest and support in the show. Speaking of which, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Funkin' Stuff channel on YouTube. That's where Truth and Rhythm lives. All kinds of goodies. You'll get early premieres, and it's all free, so make sure you sign up. Tell a friend, tell family. Also, get your official Truth and Rhythm and Funkin' Stuff gear at the FunkinStuff.net store. Cool stuff like I'm wearing right here. Truth and Rhythm shirts. Show your support and love of the show and also the musicians and the music that they represent. Also want to give a shout out to the Funk Exhibition Center and Hall of Fame in Dayton, Ohio, of which I'm very proud to be an official funk ambassador. Go to thefunkcenter.org to learn more and keep the funk alive. And now, with all that, it's time to get on with the show. Enjoy. Hey, I'm delighted to welcome to the Truth and Rhythm Mothership Danish bassist Ida Nielsen, best known as a member of Prince's New Power Generation and Third Eye Girl bands, but also an increasingly prolific artist in her own right. That includes 5 solo albums since 2008, with her latest, 0202-2020, released earlier this year. That record is a mellow departure from her customary funk and danceable grooves. Ida, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, as mentioned, big fan, and can't wait to get into it. We're going to do a little bit of history, and then we'll get up to date with where we are today, if that's okay.
Yes, that's great.
Fantastic. So, first off, where are you coming to us from today?
I'm sitting at my place in Denmark in the countryside. So that's it. We're about to go on tour not too long with the band, so I'm just getting the last couple of things together and trying to relax as much as I can before we hitting it.
Yeah. So you've lived there your entire life?
No, I just moved here, last year actually. But it's a little bit closer to my parents. I used to live in Copenhagen, which is the main city in Denmark. But it's a little bit far from my parents, and since the period I was with Prince, I was gone a lot, and now I got back, but I'm still gone a lot. So when I'm home, I would like to be a little closer. So that's why I moved, and also to get some more space and stuff.
Yeah. I hope to get there one of these days, maybe.
You should only come in the summer.
Is it a lot of snow outside right now?
No, not at all. It's very rainy. It's just not particularly pleasant this time of year.
I gotcha. Well, if okay with you, I want to go back and find out a little bit about how you first got into music, and then work our way up to some of the more recent stuff.
Yeah, cool.
So, how did you first get into music? Did you have formal training, and what drew you to the bass?
Well, the bass was a little bit of a coincidence, actually, but I think what drove me to the music was I also grew up in the countryside here in Denmark, and I went to this tiny little school, and we had this music teacher who was so involved with everything, and she was arranging after school choir stuff, and there was just a lot of music going on at the school, and that's where I think my passion for music started. And yeah, and then one day at the school we got an electric bass and a drum kit, and everybody who wanted to could get a little try of it. And so I tried it, but I didn't really like the bass. I liked the drums, and I played piano a little bit myself before. But then one day, a girl I was singing in the choir with asked me, "Hey, we're gonna have this concert with the band, and our bass player just quit. Do you wanna play?" Because she saw me play a little bit of bass, and I was like, "Sure, why not? Let's do it." And I couldn't play anything. I knew the name of the strings and 3 notes, and that was it. But I went for it, and it was not really difficult what I had to play, and I didn't really like it. I thought it was a little boring. But then there was this band with these young guys who were playing funk music, and the bass player was just going in, and I was completely floored by him. So I was like, "Oh, that's amazing! I want to do that too." And that's kind of how it started. Then steps, and more and more happened. But that's where point zero where the bass was for me.
So it was funk playing that first got you hooked on it, really?
Oh yeah, yes.
Uh-huh. And you ended up going to the Royal Danish Academy of Music, is that right?
Yes, yeah, that's right, yeah.
So you got a nice academic grounding in it as well.
Yes, I learned a lot of stuff that was maybe not so much my passion, but has been, very useful for my musical career. So that was very cool. I learned a lot, and then I was playing funk on my own.
So what was the music like that you mostly heard when you were growing up, though? Did you actually hear much funk, or was it mostly pop?
No, I grew up very much listening to what was on Danish radio, which was also mainly Danish music. So I remember like 2 things that kind of changed me into a different direction was once I saw a documentary about Billie Holiday. And I was so moved by her story that I started digging into a lot of the music, and I kind of got into it and like learning something completely different than what I've been listening to. And then the other thing that happened was I saw a different documentary on TV about James Brown, and that just hit me. I never heard anything like it, and I was like, this music is just, I love it. So that was actually the first albums I bought myself. It was a Billie Holiday album and a James Brown album, like within.
Yeah, well, James Brown, the foundation of funk for sure.
Yeah, man.
But it's one thing to like it or love it, it's another to actually be able to play it. So how much work did it take for you to kind of be able to get on the one and be able to feel funk and play it?
Well, when you're a teenager and you start playing an instrument, it is just fun. It's like I wasn't planning on becoming a bass player when I started, professionally. I just knew I loved playing music, and I thought it was fun. So it wasn't until quite later I started actually thinking about what it was I was doing. I was just trying to imitate stuff I heard. I wasn't really thinking about, it's got to be like this, or like, to be right, or anything. I was just playing. And then later on, I got more schooled, and I met some people who were really good at playing funk, and, step by step, I grew with it, I think. But I think, if you love something a lot, it's easy to become good at it, because it's playful. It was always playful for me to play funk. I think it's fun, and I just love how it makes me feel, and yeah. So
Did you? I'm guessing you eventually maybe started paying attention to people like Larry Graham, and because
yes,
you
of
have a
course.
lot of plucking in your style, so I'm
Yeah.
sure at some point James Brown didn't have a lot of plucking.
No, no, no. Of course, Larry Graham, Marcus Miller, Victor Wood, like everybody, Bootsy Collins, uh, and of course, all like if we're talking bass players, there are so many great bass players, and I've been listening to most of them, and yeah. So, but for sure, like the whole style, Larry Graham is like very close to my heart.
Yeah, yeah, I can hear that for sure.
Mhm.
So, you know, you did some recording and some things on your own before you eventually connected with Prince.
Yes.
I know you had the one record, Marmalade, which, to me, when I hear that, I think, all the pieces are in place from really what came after that. So I'm not sure how long it took you to get to the place you were at that record, but that record sounds fairly polished and accomplished. So, um, what were the steps that kind of led up to that?
Well, it was a decision I made because again, I was living here in Denmark and I was playing with all kinds of different people. And for quite some years, I was in an electronic band where I played bass and keys. But nobody ever wanted me to play funk. I didn't play funk music with anybody, and I was like, I just love it so much. And every time if I was in a band, I was like, wait, can we do a little bit like? And everybody was like, no, we don't want that. So, so I decided at one point, I, I I need to do an album with a lot of slapping in it and a lot of bass, and uh, it's just not, or it was just not a popular genre here in Denmark, but other places in the world it is, and I love it. And I was like, I need to do this album, and it's got to have a lot of bass in it, and I don't care if people don't like it or not. I'm just gonna do it. So so that was it, and I feel like that was the whole, like, doing that album just made a lot of really cool stuff happening for me, and that I don't think would have happened if I hadn't done it.
So you took a big bit of a gamble that paid off. Sounds like.
Yes. Yeah, it's because I got picked up afterwards to go on the NAMM show with TC Electronic, who launched their first bass amp. And then some people took videos of me, and that was I think it was in 2009, and there was not so many videos going on the internet still as now. But and then that's how Prince saw me. He saw some of those videos. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So, but you didn't use the Ida Nielsen name at that time. So
No.
how many names? How many AKAs do you have?
Well, the thing is, when I did my first album, I didn't know. I was like, I need an artist name, but I don't know what it's gonna be. And then, the first one is called Bass Ida or Basida, but it's really because that's what people always called me. Bass Ida. If they were so it was really what people called me anyway. But I was never really so happy with it. So then I started calling myself Ida Funkhauser because I saw that in an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm,
Right.
and I thought it was hilarious, like a hilarious name, and I thought that's supposed to be my name. So, but then once I started playing with Prince, everything was announced. Ida Nielsen from Denmark, and then all of a sudden there was a whole bunch of people who knew who Ida Nielsen was, and not any of the other names. So then I was like, well, okay, now I'm Ida Nielsen.
Yeah. I guess I said it the American way, Ida. I should say Ida.
Oh, okay.
So I apologize for that.
Oh, no way. No worries. Everybody does.
I did want to just mention a couple of tracks on that Marmalade record that I really liked. The Please Poppy, really funky and groovy
Mhm.
track. And did you write all of these, or?
Yes.
Wow.
There's a rapper guesting on some of the track. Every time there's a rapper guesting, they're writing their own lyrics, but everything else I'm writing, and the music I'm writing.
How long did it take you to finish that project?
That took a little longer than I thought it would, because I had all these ideas, but this was actually the first time I was going to do an album on my own, and I was also not planning on singing on it. I was maybe want to do some of the songs and then have different people come in and sing, but it took so long for me to write the lyrics that it just really, I couldn't have anybody come and sing it until I finished the lyrics, and then eventually I did do it, and the guy I was recording in his studio, he said, you know what, I think you should just sing it yourself because it makes everything glue together, because all the songs are a little different, but your voice makes it, sound, I don't know the English word for that, but it made it like a red thread through the whole thing. So, and then I did it, and then it actually turned out to be an advantage, because when I started playing with my band, I think it's more easy to get noticed as a bass player if you also sing. So
a little harder though.
yeah, oh yes.
The title track is a great jam too, but it's so short. Some of the tracks are a little on the short side,
Yeah.
like that one.
Mm-hmm.
But it kicks butt for however long it is, less than 2 minutes. And then the closing track, Booyah, is pretty wicked funk too. So I really enjoyed those.
Cool, man.
Yeah. Did you sell many, and like where did they sell? Domestically or abroad, or?
No.
No.
I don't think I sold that many. I sold some of the ones I had leftovers later on when I started up with my own band again. But I sold a few at concerts, and
So now they're collector's items.
Yeah, a little bit.
So you did the videos, and somehow you caught Prince's eye.
Yeah.
Tell us, the sequence of events that happened from that point to you actually auditioning or whatever it was that got you first playing with him.
Yes, it was really surreal, because not even like half a year before, one of my friends asked me, hey, what do you want? Like, you're doing your own band and all this, but what is your goal? What do you want with it? What is your biggest dream? And I was like, well, to play with Prince. That's it. This is where I want to go. And so, when I got the call, I could not believe it. I think everybody who got the call could not believe it. Everybody thinks it's a joke or whatever. But so that's what at first I couldn't believe it, but then it did sound like maybe it's true. I talked to to his manager at the time, who invited me to Minnesota for 3 days for a jam. And then she said, and I was like, yes. And she was like, would you like that? And of course, I would like it. And then she said, okay, I'll call you back. And then I didn't hear anything for like 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, it was just some of my friends who knew it was my dream, and they were trying to pull my leg or something. But then eventually she actually did call back, and I got invited, and I went for 3 days, and it was, I didn't sleep. I was so nervous. But yeah, I got sent some tracks to learn, and just very, very last minute. I don't know if it was on purpose or what, but I did. And then I went over there, and basically when when I met Prince, the first time it was in Paisley Park in Studio A, and I was about to shake his hand, and he was like, "Here, we're giving each other hugs here," and then he gave me a hug. So that was pretty cool. And then John Blackwell was there too, and we were just talking a little bit, and I was quite nervous and shy, but Prince was really cool. He asked me about my bass, and it made me relax. So I told him about what bass I played, and he was like, "Can I hear it?" And then I took it out and started playing a little bit, and then he told John, "Hey, the drums are already hooked up. You can go play along if you want." And then John went in the drum booth and started jamming along, and then Prince was playing keys. And then we're jamming a little bit, and then he started playing something else with a little weird bass line in the left hand, and I think he did it to see if I could catch it. So we played that for a little bit, and then he was like, "Yes, okay, we're going on tour. Are you available?" So
Just like that.
Just like that.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was like after 20 minutes, 30 minutes jam, he invited me on the tour. So, and then it just went, I was there for 3 days. The second day, we actually went on the sound stage with, and jammed for real. And I kind of had a little bit of a meltdown, and I couldn't remember anything. And I was like, oh, he regrets it now that he asked me. But then the third day it was a little better. And then he gave me a CD and said, there was a live concert. He's like, "Go home and learn it and call me when you know it." So I went home and I learned it, and I called and said, "Hey, I know it now." And then I got invited back to the States, and we just started rehearsing for the tour. And this was, I think, in September, just around August, September 2010. And in October, we were on tour, or November. I think October we started rehearsing, and then November we were on tour. So everything went really fast.
Wow. Had you ever been to the States before?
Yes, I had been. I was actually touring with a band from Europe called Sap Mama, and we had a few tours in the States. So it was not my first time, but it was, of course, all different.
Yeah, my gosh, that's incredible. So, what impression did Prince have on you, though, when you first met him in person? I mean, in terms of, he gave you a hug, but in terms of just a person and also a talent.
I mean, he was so sweet. Like when I first met him, he was really very sweet to me, and definitely trying to do his best to make me feel comfortable. So like I came with a really good feeling. And then of course, he was my musical hero, and it was amazing. And then, to be like the first time to be in the room jamming with him was out of this world. He's so funky. Even like, doesn't matter which instrument, he was on keys then. So yeah.
Did you already know how to play some of his songs?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I learned some of the songs and played them over the years, but also listened to some of it, of course, when I heard about the audition.
So that was around the time I know that this record was out. He released 2010 through the newspaper. Yeah. And I think I'd seen footage from the MPG then, and you were, on that tour. So what do you remember about that first tour?
It's crazy. I remember everything, but like in high speed, sort of, because the thing is, when I started, I had to really learn a lot of songs, because we never played the same set list 2 nights in a row, so it was a quite big. Yeah, I just have to know his entire repertoire, or that's not possible, but a lot of it. And so it was always a build up, and we did also a lot of after shows where we played different songs. So it was, in the beginning, I just had to learn and learn. So I didn't even notice, everything all of a sudden, we're traveling first class. Everything is fantastic, but I don't even have time to really notice because, I'm just so focused to do the job well. Yeah, it's, I forgot what you're asking. I'm sorry.
The tour was like, but did he actually show you how to play any parts on bass himself? Like,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, sometimes he would just, and this was like all the way also with Third Eye Blind, sometimes he would be very particular how he wanted it. And then he would have to show me if I didn't get it by myself. Like if I played something he liked, he'd just let me play it. But if I was missing something, he would show me. So, it's quite a luxury to have a band leader who can show you exactly how it's supposed to be.
Did that tour go to Denmark?
Yes, we played our second and third show in Denmark.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was, it was, well, the biggest thing for me was the first show, which was in Norway, because before this first show, the band had been in Paris rehearsing without Prince. So we've been rehearsing for a week, and just to be in really good shape, and also I guess adjust to the time zone. So we rehearsed for a week. So this was actually the first time we played with him since we were rehearsing in the States. So, and I just remember the difference from us rehearsing without him to actually him being on stage and just starting singing the first song, and how it was like just went from here to here, like that effect he could have on everybody, also the musicians, and also make everybody just play better, and because he was so much music.
Oh yeah. Was it a challenge to keep up at all, doing those long shows and after shows and hopping city to city? And
it was just fantastic. And later on it got tough, but in the beginning it was just fantastic.
So John Blackwell was on drums, and
Yeah.
The late great John Blackwell. He was phenomenal, of course, we all know. Who were a couple other people in that band, and what was it like playing with them?
It was fantastic. I can tell you everybody who was in the band. Of course, Morris Hayes, Renato Neto, Cassandra O'Neill, all three of them on keys. And Liv Warfield, Shelby J, and Elisa Dees, all singing. Those three singing, and then John Blackwell and me. So 3 keyboards, 3 singers, John and me, and then of course Prince.
So Prince handled all guitar on that show.
Yeah.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, and then actually Sheila E. joined us on some of the shows also on this tour.
Mm-hmm. And so you went from that tour, and then what happened after the tour was over?
Well, the tour kind of never ended, because we started this tour, and then we started the Welcome to America tour right after, where we played a whole lot of dates in New York, and then we went to the Carolinas, and
I was there. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we went to LA, and then we went to Australia, and then we went to Canada, or the other way around. But it was 2 years of almost constant touring. So, and I was home like once in a while for a week or two, and then back on the road. So it was really, and then in 2012, he started doing the big band, where he put Andrew Goucher on bass, and I played guitar first with Mike Scott and then later on with Donna when she joined. So that was like a transitioning period. I think he was, trying something else. He wanted all the horns, and then by the end of 2012, well, in the middle of 2012, one day Hannah came, but I was there quite a lot with people coming like for a jam or an audition and something. So that was not, like sometimes people came and I played along. So, and yeah, one day Hannah came, and then by the end of 2012, all of a sudden Donna came, and then Hannah and Donna, and I was there, and then Prince just had us play for a week, a whole lot of rock. And then we went home for the holidays and started up fresh 2013 and just started to rehearse and do a lot of photo shoots and videos, but we had no idea that, what was happening with it. There was nothing, we were not told anything. And we did all these videos, like fun stuff, like Cryptic, who is Third Eye Girl, and we were trying to, but we didn't know that was going to be the name of the band. It was, so we were just having a lot of fun. It was actually a great way to get to know each other, to goof around and make videos like that, and just play a lot. So,
when Ida, when was the first time that you got to be in studio with Prince?
That was, I think, in 2011. We did some recordings because we, in between some tours, we, because he wrote music all the time, and I remember we recorded a song in Paisley. So that must have been early 2011. I'm not quite sure of the timing of it, but no, that one might be later. I remember Andy Ello, Prince did her album, and John and me was in the studio with Prince doing, maybe that was before, I don't remember quite which one was first, but that was in Switzerland. We were in Switzerland right after the tour. I just went home, and then I got called back because it was so beautiful there, and they found a studio that had tape. So and then we started recording her album, and I remember, every time I've been in a studio doing any kind of recording, there's always been a click. And then I was asking John, what's a click? And he's like, no, we don't use clicks here. We're keeping it, we're locking with ourselves. And I was like, I cannot believe that, because if you hear back all his older records, it sounds like there's a click, like it's so tight. Everybody is so tight, but it's just how they play,
Wow.
and how he plays. So I was like, is this really possible at all? So that was quite, an eye-opener for me, that you don't have to do that. And, because it keeps it more alive and gives a different kind of energy. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, it was just a huge inspiration every time I was in the studio with him, because he kind of had everything in his head, like all played, like how everybody was going to play. But in our case, we were just playing bass and drums, and he would have us do fills very specifically. He would like make a fill like this, sounding like he would be totally specific, both with the drums and the bass. And then afterwards, you can hear how he instruments everything else around that, so he already heard it in his head, all these things. So that was, it was really amazing to be part of.
Wow.
Yeah.
And somehow, in the midst of all that, you released another album in 2011.
Yes.
Sometimes a Girl Needs Sugar too.
Yeah.
How'd you manage to pull that off?
Well, actually, the album was as good as done when I got the call from Prince. So it's just been lying around, waiting to get released. and then we had a break, but then we didn't really. But I thought we were going to have a break, and I was like, I'm going to release it, otherwise it gets really old, and I'm getting tired of it before it gets out. So I'm just going to release it. And I was only missing to like very few things, and I remember I had Shelby rap on one of the songs, like which we did in a hotel room on one of the tours. So, so it's everything. It was mostly done, and then it got mixed, and I was like listening with headphones for the mixes and stuff. And, yeah.
When I hear this record, it brought to mind to me some of the like female proteges that Prince had even worked with like years ago, like the Carmen Electra record, and that kind of thing, like funky with the light kind of female vocal treatment, and very danceable and fun, and a lot of personality. I liked Repertory in My Bedroom, really fun.
Yeah.
But even things like Cowboy Song, I mean, it's like kind of quirky. There's your sense of personality and humor comes through, and some of the titles too made me think of like Parliament Funkadelic, like You Can't Fake the Funk, and Discombobule, Discombobule Love Song, or what? Yeah, it's like kind of like Parliament Funkadelic type, titles. A lot of fun. So were you influenced at all too by George Clinton and Parliament and Funkadelic? And
yes, absolutely. It's a huge part of funk music, but I listen more to Prince stuff, I must say. But for sure, yeah, I think those titles are just mostly because I'm goofy. So
I said fine. You can say goofy. But you did mention Bootsy before, so that kind of plays in. Yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, you mentioned about kind of you didn't really know what was going on, and you were doing all these things. It was fun, and from the outside, for me and for other followers, it was like it was an exciting period being a fan, but it was also so much in the dark. Kind of like wondering what was going on, and getting these notices out of nowhere that Third Eye Girl was doing something online that night or whatever, and just it was like really, I think Prince really tried to sort of go like underground again with the whole rock thing and doing things very spontaneously.
Yeah, I think so. It we also did, just as you mentioned, those like pop-up concerts, and we did that a lot, and we did a whole UK tour with pop-up concerts, just announcing like on the day or the day before, we're gonna play here. And you couldn't buy the tickets online, you had to get out and stand in the line, like really old school, but there was a really very cool kind of energy about that, that whole excitement about it. That was we did it also at Paisley Park, but I think he's been doing that always. But
how was it for you playing with Donna and Hannah? And I mean, that was a very different experience, and it was more rock than you had done before, right?
Yes, yeah, I kind of had to I feel like the funky stuff was more my what do you call it, my lane, but the rock was I had to not learn to play it, but to play it with the right feel, so it was it was interesting. Like Hannah was really classic rock, and Donna was also rock, but more like blues and fusion, and I was definitely more funk. And we came from 3 different countries, so it was just like it was very cool. I think the whole